This is Canon Fodder, episode 58, live from New Orleans, back again. Mr. Christopher Sandbatch, our de jure sort of co-host, or I guess de facto co-host.
Yeah, I guess that's the way it works, but I only ever actually come on the show whenever I'm having existential meltdowns about something and you want to talk about a book that sends me careening further over the edge into existential meltdown.
Exactly. I really want to just twist the knife and see how far I can take your madness there, Hamlet.
We're running out of books that could potentially result in me crying on air, but tonight is probably we're going to fly as close to the sun as we could possibly get because we're going to talk about the Moviegoer.
So the Moviegoer by Walker Percy is the literally me book for a few different people. I consider it one of my literally me's, and I've only read it the one time. Without giving too much away, Chris, why don't you explain your relationship to this book?
Well, I actually first read it, and Walker Percy taught because I'm in New Orleans, but and I'm from here, and Walker Percy was one of these guys that almost everybody of a certain demographic gets exposed to from here at pretty rudimentary age. It was like 16 was I think when the first time. This is like the way I imagined Yankee prep school students read that book a separate piece is the way I sort of look at this one. And it's like, it's like the book that all of us have to go through. And so I first read it when I was 16 or so. And it is, of all of the books that I've read in my life, it's probably the one that has affected me the most. And I wouldn't say influential or anything like that, but just like it crosses my path at strange times. And again, it's like I said, I'm from here, and I don't mind people knowing. Yeah, I'm really from Covington, and Covington is where Walker Percy was from. So I have a lot of really close personal relationships with people that were, around this book and in it, and it's sort of hard to explain because I've been referring to myself as an old head lately. I've been around so long that there was no red pill ladder or anything like that. And so we were just all kind of brewing things up on our own. And this is one of the books that strangely will crop up in a lot of folks' data set. And it doesn't actually seem that way. But then, and I just want to point this out as well, because we haven't talked about a Southern book, have we? Oh no, we did go down Moses. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did go down Moses. We talked about the most Southern book.
Well, okay, yeah. There's and really my fields that I'm really formally can claim some expertise in are Southern history and Southern literature, and so this is one of the ones also that's sort of it's kind of considered to be one of the landmark works in Southern fiction. It fits very closely into it. This is just another thing to think about when we go through this. It fits very closely into a lineage of 3 books that I would establish, and maybe nobody else in the world would tell you to look at these 3 books in sequence. But
are we getting the Southern canon?
This is a branch of the Southern canon. Okay, is what this is. This is a formal genealogy, and it's one that may not be discovered. It's a relatively esoteric one. So the first of these 3 books is a book by William Faulkner called The Wild Poems. Okay, and then the second one is this one, and the third one is a book called The Passenger by Cormac McCarthy. Okay, and they all have a couple of things in common that I think are really worth pointing out. They're all stories that happen inside the city. They happen primarily in the city of New Orleans. Okay. And there's a whole, the New Orleans novel is every bit as much of a drama as the Los Angeles novel, or name a city with genre novel named after it. And New Orleans actually probably punches harder above its weight than everywhere except Oxford, Mississippi. And so all three of them are in the city of New Orleans. All three of them involve a kind of nebulously mid-20s to mid-30s. I think Bobby Western is a little older. Bobby Western's like 38 or something like that. So there's somebody there's between like 25 and like say 40, single male, white male Southern protagonist. And then the similarities like start to sort of devolve, but they're all very, necessarily in conversation with one another. And I'm pleased to inform everyone that of those three, this is the one that kind of has a redemptive ending. So if you're like looking for books that are incredibly, they're actually very hopeful and also very Christian. This is one of the most blindingly Catholic texts you're ever going to run across. So if that sort of thing floats your boat, keep all that in mind while we're talking as well.
I want you to say more, because it might have even been you that I read this from, but somebody wrote like that Binks Bowling is Bobby Western, right? And that Kate is Alicia.
Okay, now that sounds like somebody that's barking up the. It sounds more like Glenn than me. No, that doesn't sound like something he would say, because he wouldn't even. I don't think he's really all that interested in Walker Percy. Or I mean, if he is, he doesn't. It's not something he beats his drum on, and that is okay. And you know about the book that I'm writing, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're sort of entering the mental space of the book that I'm writing here now.
I think it might have been in that long DM that you sent me that's where I got that. Actually, I read so much crap on an average day.
I read so much crap on the internet, man, and like 10% of it is yours.
Easily 10% are just Sandbatchisms that don't make it to the timeline.
Right. So they'll really the way I loop these books conceptually together again is that they're also very formally thought experiments. And this is a thing that we don't really think of as being done in fiction all that often anymore. But like they are philosophical novels. And I don't know, before we go any further, how would you define a philosophical novel?
I would define a philosophical novel as one that. Oh, gee, that's a good question, because I know what you're talking, and it's like one of those like it when you see it type deals.
Yeah.
Like you could, probably the sort of, well, not even the philosophical novel, but like the one guy everybody can point to, highly influential on this book is The Stranger by Camus.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's one that would fit snugly here. Okay. So like a concept that I'm working with is that, okay, a philosophical novel and a mathematical novel is a type of philosophical novel here, I guess. But it's a novel that starts with a hypothetical, and then the rest of the book itself very consciously investigates a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's really, you saw them a lot more they're really more associated with modernism than they are anything else. And like I've referred to Absalom as a Nietzschean philosophical novel. Okay, this one is not. This is a different kind, and this is a philosophical question that was initially there. Well, there's a Nietzschean element in the Faulkner text. So the initiatory question in this genealogical strain of the Southern canon starts with William Faulkner asking the question: is it possible for two people to build a relationship out of essentially pure will and eros? Okay. And then
answer's no. I actually haven't read Absalom yet.
No, this one's not Absalom. This one is this is the other one that I always talk about that nobody ever reads. It's called you'll find it in the stores as the Wild Palms, but the
Yes,
original
yes, yes. You
the
did a
original
fantastic
title,
essay on that, by the way.
yeah.
And we'll make sure to link that.
Actually, yeah, I'll unpaywall it. Yeah, I wrote about it because it's I referred to, and this is the reason this genealogy exists, is because the novel does sort of it falls apart. It's like this is actually it's interesting in a lot of reasons, in a lot of ways. We actually do a whole other episode on it. But the only thing I really say about it is that Faulkner actually getting so complicated, he is really showing his failures here. He's doing a building in public thing, and he publishes a book that he knows didn't work. Okay, and like possibly it's because the nature of this question. There's some things and how he goes about investigating it. Okay, or whatever. But then here Walker Percy is sort of investigating. He's moving over the same ground, but he's doing it from a more self-consciously like sort of postmodern perspective. Okay, so like this is like someone who's aware of modernity, and he's also doing it from a very Christian perspective, where he's the moral lens has moved from like dark abstract modern hedonism to like now this
absurdity.
So now you're in this like kind of jokey but sappy, also sentimental, postmodern, post civil rights, New Orleans. This is actually, the book takes place in the 1950s, so it's concurrent with civil rights. This is after the Southern intelligentsia has flipped over to be formally, in favor of civil rights and that sort of thing. So race is not actually an element in this story. This is one of the things I think that probably actually distinguishes the New Orleans novel from Southern fiction in general is that it frequently doesn't include a lot of Black characters. It's like it's usually about upper middle class to upper class white people and their problems. Okay,
you could even say that A Confederacy of Dunces is the anti New Orleans novel.
Yeah. Oh man.
Which I mean, and feel free to take that bait and run with it. We did an episode here with Dan Baltic. It had to be Dan, if anyone, and which I lay out that New Orleans is hell, and Spencer, or not Spencer Grunhauer. Gee, wow.
Dan.
Who's the main character?
Oh, Ignatius Riley.
Ignatius, right? How the heck did it? Wow, I'm so nutcracker pilled. I just consider them the same guy. No, but Ignatius, becomes like a normal dude as soon as he leaves the city. But anyway, all that is to say, you were gonna castigate Tool.
You know what? I'm going to leave him alone. But here's another interesting thing that you brought up, because here's another one of the themes of these this like sort of triptych of novels is kind of what it is that they will almost always involve, and this is a wider fixture of like Southern canonical fiction, is that if you have if the constellation of this protagonist lines up, and you've got an upper middle class to upper class white Southerner in New Orleans, and that's like what that shit is already on your storyboard. Okay, now one of the things that you like one of the requirements that you now unlock, we're talking about like formal generic requirements here. Like this has to happen somewhere in this book or it doesn't count. One of them is like there has to be an exit from the South. Okay, and you have to go somewhere else for a while. And Walker Percy is actually the guy who theorized this sort of aspect of the Southern novel. He wrote, it was like the last self-help book or something. It was this parody book he wrote towards the end of his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of it. I want to pick it up.
Yeah, there's a section where he talks about the Heideggerian re-entry, okay, and there's like, this is like a sort of metaphysical thing. So the character leaves the South on some sort of trip that's roughly analogous to in sort of the Western canon's definition of a heroic epic of sort of the undertaking or the descent into the underworld, and then there's either a return or not a return. Okay, and
okay, so you want to hear my take on that?
Yeah,
real quick. That you don't get that without Gettysburg.
Oh man, now He was just like,
That is
he's unloading with the heavies. It's like, you want me to tell about the South? Is that what I'm here to do? Yeah. Okay.
leaving and return to the South is like, you don't know you're in the South unless you go north, kind of thing. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's Gettysburg. That's the tale of Gettysburg.
Yeah, that's the interesting. That's ground that I have not ever considered covering before. But I try seriously not to think about the war ever. So that's but that's true.
That's like living on Mercury and trying not to think about the sun.
Right. No, that is definitely true. Well, no, this genealogical like sort of triptych that we're talking about has I would think one of the things it has in common is an aversion to thinking about, or it's like a self-conscious avoidance of the war question or the war lineage. But you're definitely it's like sort of something like meteorites that like real reality meteorites that crash into the atmosphere of our self-delusion in a lot of ways, because you're probably right. That's definitely probably the metaphorical, because it's not there in
so we can
18th
talk
century Southern writing. It's not there until after the Civil War. So there is like something going on.
and you take and again, this is all conjecture, folks. I'd need to do a long study on this to find out if I'm even close to sniffing the truth. But Walker Percy, I mean, he was friends with Shelby Foote. He was so, or was it he that was nervous talking to Faulkner, or was it Foote that was nervous talking to Faulkner?
It was him that wouldn't get out of the car. Now, if you're interested, because God, I have the new critic thing, so like I'm disposed not to actually talk about the writer, but like Walker Percy is actually, he's actually a descendant. He's a descendant of the American wing of the Percy family, which is it's a very famous English aristocratic family, and the Percys have been, when you're talking about Southern aristocracy, like the real thing, and explicitly not the Virginia aristocracy, I would point out. Like, you were talking about the deep South, quote, aristocracy, unquote. Walker Percy is from like the beating heart of it. And he's got in his family, he's got the same thing that goes on with Hemingway's family, which is lots of suicides. His father and his mother both killed themselves. And like, God, there's like, I think his
I mean, he was convalescent for a long time.
Well, he had polio too, but he always, and like, this is the thing. I have a lot of thoughts about this because there is something peculiar, and this is the reason why I sort of excluded the Virginians. Is there is something peculiar in the like planter families of the Deep South, where they are prone to this sort of strange melancholy or depressive state. Okay. And he's got it bad, but he was again. After his parents killed themselves. I mean, this happened. I don't think they were together, but it happened in rapid succession. And one of them was pretty traumatic. It was like like he was in a car, and his mother like drove the car and like sort of died by like car suicide or something like that, is I think what it was. And he and his brothers were in the car at the time. At that, I'm pretty sure that's the case. But he was raised, on the other hand, by like his gay uncle, what was essentially and his gay uncle had a plantation in I think Greenwood, Mississippi is where it was. He wrote a memoir called Lanterns on the Levee, and it was a memoir of the essentially life on the like really old style plantations from the end of the Civil War to like right after World War One. And it's a really interesting document because he was an excellent writer. He was, he's kind of these people that would be considered, if there is a Southern bohemian, like type, he would be the guy that of anybody that I can think of off the top of my head matches it closest. So that's who he grew up with. So, he's kind of this he's this athletic kind of square guy on one hand, like this very like family oriented person. And on the other hand, he also has this upbringing where he was like raised by like this high modernist artist in like a crumbling plantation. Like, it's like literally how a Dickens novel starts, and the blend of these two things in him is really interesting. And yes, he was like he and Shelby Foote, they're both two people very similar. They're about the same age. They both grew up at a time whenever like being a writer, being a novelist in the American South was a bit like being like a TikTok influencer today, because something called the Southern Renaissance was occurring, and like the Southern regional culture in the United States had exploded to international prominence for reasons no one has ever totally explained. But like for the first time in a long time, that the South was something other than just poor, and like it was writers that were the leading sort of figures in that, in our reemergence into the modern economy in a lot of ways. So like we tend to lean really hard on writers. And so he grew up conscious of these Southern writers from the 1920s and 30s. And like, so he knew who William Faulkner was. And like William Faulkner was like, he was already at the point where, canonical idolization of William Faulkner is happening. And yeah, they make that trip out to Roanoke to go see him. I think it was like Walker Percy. I think it was Percy. He was scared to get out of the car. I might be scared to get out of the car at William Faulkner's house too. He was notoriously kind of an asshole.
And if memory serves correct, Faulkner faked a war injury, didn't he?
Yeah. He did crash a plane. That did happen, but right. He didn't get hurt in the process. He faked.
My goodness, he's always trying to be Hemingway.
Yeah. But yeah, no, yeah, he's got that Hemingway thing, and so he's prone to these really strong bouts of depression. And he's actually a doctor. He's a medical doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But like he gets,
and it wasn't polio, it was TB that he had.
Yeah. So he gets to, and it was one of those very romantic illnesses. And he while he's convalescing from this, he essentially decides he's going to be a novelist, and like, never mind being a doctor. And so he does that. And this is the first book that he wrote, I think this is the first one. In either case, it's the one he's the most famous for. A lot of people don't think. I think Thomas 777 he's real big on that book. This is a weird thing. Like Walker Percy's a weird connection between me and Thomas. But I don't know how that happened. But he's a big fan of The Last Gentleman, I think. But I think this is the best
one. I'm staring at the Thanatos Syndrome right now, and I definitely want to pick that up. I've heard nothing but good things.
That may be the least good of all of them.
Really?
But it's still good. Yeah. It's kind of got like this like 1990s like sort of like Walgreens paperback aspect.
I see. Well, I mean, mine is literally like a Del Rey paperback copy, so fitting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that might be the first edition of it. Like you might, because it came out looking like that. But yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to. I guess it's time to get into the book a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So Binks Bollinger. I keep wanting to say Bollinger, but it's just Bowling.
Yeah, Binks Bowling.
He's a finance guy. He comes from a well-to-do family.
He's a stock jobber. He's a stockbroker. Okay, so
yeah, he's a stockbroker, and it's funny that his career is actually a huge disappointment to his great aunt.
Yeah. It's just like, because I mean, there are a lot of things going on. Yeah, and generally, according to the rules of the old Southern, like sort of upper class, having to work at all was something that like is not good. Like that's like something you really should try to avoid doing.
The Protestant work ethic is a Northeast phenomenon.
And this is, I mean, they're Roman Catholics. This is an old New Orleans family. So there's some interesting things to just like to chew on here. So I mean, since I'm here, we go ahead and do the geography of the city. There are a couple of things about Binks that are immediately interesting. Okay. He's from one of these families. He's from the Lower Garden District. He's actually from the Garden District proper, not the Lower Garden District. And so this is the extremely wealthy, old money Anglo part of the city of New Orleans. And he is, at the start of this novel, for some reason, not living there. He's living way over on the other side of town in this suburb it was a suburb at the time, is now, to be honest, it's more or less been incorporated into the city, called the Gentilly. Okay. And there, at the time, this would have been seen as like the Gentilly, and the Gentilly at the time, whenever this book was happening, was brand new suburb. It was like one of those post-war suburbs that would have been, considered incredibly bland and characterless, by comparison with, like, the wrought iron. I mean, everybody knows what the Garden District looks like, compared to that. So there's a deliberate choice to live in this blandness, and there's a deliberate choice, despite the fact that he obviously doesn't have to work as a stockbroker, okay. And, this is back in these days whenever, local stockbrokers were things, because we didn't have internet trading or anything like that. You had to actually physically call.
Right. Yeah, his day was basically just calling up Wall Street and putting in trades.
Yeah. Like he's not even, in most cases, he's probably not even like, deciding on the trades. He's just taking the trades. But the other thing he does is serially date his nurses. Okay. I mean, or not his nurses.
His assistants, yeah.
His secretary serially dates his assistant. And essentially what he is he's this like kind of like dreamy, almost I would immediately almost want to put a Walter Mitty like sticker on him, but but it's too dark for that, like it's like too. Walter Mitty is an American story, and this has a curious Southern darkness to it.
Yeah, if Walter Mitty didn't ever leave, he just kept daydreaming.
And that's sort of like, that's actually one of the things we get here is like, what is the problem with Southern people, and is that they fucking daydream about everything, and they have been for 150 years, and everything is an endless reimagining of the Civil War. Okay. And and he's one of these people, and but he's in rebellion against his family for some reason. He does have U.S. military experience. He's traumatized by the Korean War. So there's, the character setting here is that he's 29. He's 29. He turns 30 during the story. He's living on the edge of town, working like kind of a bullshit job, avoiding his family as much as possible, serially dating his nurses, and he's like chooses to embark on this thing that he calls the search, because he's at Mardi Gras, and like he sees like William Holden walking through because then of course where does the title come from? One of the things he does to kill time is he just goes to movies.
He's just always at the movie theater.
And it's like, what do you think is going on with the movie watching? Just out of curiosity.
I think it's this. It's the search for authenticity, right? Because he's very much like this kind of Holden Caulfield type, like always searching for authenticity, right?
Right.
There's that really good line where he's wondering if he's the only person on the search.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This is sort of the way it works, and it's difficult to tell what because again, we're in one of these philosophical novels. It's pretty difficult to tell what our initial hypothesis is, but this is one of these times where I find it strange, because and I think this is possibly one of the reasons why this book turns up in so many dudes that spend a lot of time online's, sort of data set, is because I feel like this is one of the things that a lot of us all have in common, is that question has crossed our mind before,
Am I the only one? Like, am I the weirdo? Am I the...
Yeah, I'm sure it works the same way for women. It's just there's a woman character somewhere that will tell that side.
We'll talk about Kate.
Oh man,
all right, we'll talk about Mrs. Sandbatch.
Oh my god. Where's Kate from? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Alabama somewhere, I think.
Maybe. I'm not even sure.
So yeah, so Kate, no, oh no, 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 oh God, Kate is the cousin. No, yeah, you see, it's
Yeah.
been a while since I read this. Yeah,
Oh,
so,
yeah, no, yeah, no, there's yeah, no, you're thinking of the secretary. Yeah, no, she's from
oh my
Alabama.
God, yeah, no, I had blocked it out and it just came crashing in. That whole aspect of this book just popped into living color, and I put actual like physical faces on the names and sensations, like I could smell the house. So yeah, Kate is again. Banks is about he's about 29. Kate Coutre is how you pronounce that name, by the way. That's
I thought
Kate.
it was Cutler.
Yeah, no, that's Kate Coutre. The
Oh, yeah, Couture. How did I get Cutler? Never mind.
No, but it's like
Couture.
everybody's gonna get it wrong. It's like I, it's almost funny. Just like yeah, just go give it your best shot. Try and pronounce it. Just go with whatever your first one is. But anyway, yeah, Kate is actually he's Banks's mother's. He's Banks's and Banks's parents are dead. Again, this is so there's like an
No, no,
art.
the mother's alive.
What?
The mom's alive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mom's
Because
alive, but the aunt is this curiously powerful figure in his life.
right.
And this is his first cousin marriage incest. Just out of curiosity,
Is his first cousin.
I know it's a stepdaughter though, but it is a first cousin legally, isn't it?
Uh, I thought she was a second cousin.
Okay, so we can go to second cousin then, because that's just one more. He's just stepping it up one for squeamish readers. His second cousin marriage, is that incest?
No,
So it's not.
I mean, but I'm Irish, so
Yeah, I
you
was
know,
gonna say I'm from New Orleans, so like I'm like
yeah,
willing,
I
like,
mean,
I might be willing to go down another rung lower.
I'm pretty certain that my great grandparents were cousins.
Yes.
Uh,
But
which
anyway, yeah,
I learned recently.
yeah, okay, and she's on her. I think she's on her second fiance at this point, or something like she was because she had
Yes,
she
yes.
had a previous fiance and he died in an accident of some kind, and they were like really young, and she's like kind of this shell shocked e girl. the
E girl. But she's like she's elated by this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Or just survive. It's unclear as to why, but she's both elated by the accident, but also she's completely just stuck in it.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is a feminine disposition or a southern disposition, or like maybe both. It's a feminine southern disposition, and I could get in so much trouble for even embarking on this conversation. But the
Women like when their men die.
there are women in the city that know where I live, and like yeah, I could be chased down at any moment. And if the door like busts down, it's because somebody heard I was making a podcast with this book, and they're like, no, just stop it. But yeah, no, okay. So she's what is the elation over? Like, what do we think the elation is over?
You know, I don't know. I thought it was, oh, she survived.
Okay, so like yeah, there is
Like
this like
it's that touch with death and making it through. But then I think she's also completely tinged with guilt
okay,
over
yeah, there's
ways
a little
that
bit of survivor's guilt, okay, but this is like one of these things. This is another thing that's sort of inherited is this triptych of novels. And again, oh, and I didn't even actually finish that. So like this triptych of novels that I'm sort of imagining, and really what happens, there's a male and a female persona whose main object is one another. And there are like sort of obstacles, strange things that come in between them, the implications, possibly soulmates, and the question of whether or not that sort of thing exists. And there's always this other female character, and like the novel itself is like almost like escape room for them. Do they get out? Does the cowboy ride away or does he not? And she is ultimately very obviously if we have this triptych of books where these same two personas who are like sort of skinned slightly differently in different iterations of the same like sort of dreamline or whatever, she is the female persona that is the lead
so
role.
to reference another book, think The Beautiful and the Damned, where at the beginning, it's the beautiful and the damned, right? Where or no, was it This Side of Paradise? Where the the I guess some greater supernatural force says, "Oh, you're going to be a jazz baby. You're going to have a great time."
Yeah,
At
yeah,
the
yeah,
beginning of the
yeah,
book.
yeah, 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 something
Which
like
one was
that.
that? Was that This Side
Oh
of
my
Paradise?
God, I actually don't know. I initially thought probably one of the short stories, but no, that
No,
it's
no, it's one of the novels.
yeah. So that would probably be The Beautiful and the Damned. Yeah, I don't
Probably.
think
Yeah, I
that.
think yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think he was old enough to be that cynical when he wrote This Side of Paradise. But he was getting there. He was getting. He was that Beautiful and Damned is just right for that
And
level
then
of
and then
fiction.
if we want to also, extrapolate that further, you could say that Hamlet and Ophelia have that sort of relationship.
Oh yeah, I mean Hamlet and Ophelia are the story here. So like
Yeah.
that's the this is one of the reasons why I have such a strong opinion about Hamlet because yeah, the Hamlet is the sort of connection to what you would call, I guess, the English canon. This is like ultimately an offshoot of it's a, it is of Hamletian provenance ultimately. But yeah, and so one of the questions this book, asks is, do these two people do what it takes to sort of like meet each other? Do they have what it takes to sort of like do
Oh,
the
so
divine
you're
coupling?
saying that the fiance's death is her sort of
I mean, this
her
is her.
path towards getting to him.
Well, it's something that happens, but okay, it's actually the thing that triggers what you would consider to be her crisis. And I write a lot about this exact damn story. Like this is like William Blake and the Rose. This is The Wasteland. This is the same story again, where the thing is there's this man and there's this woman, and they have like there's a crisis that's caused, and there's a sort of a quest that has to be accomplished to get on the part of both to get there, and then come together and decide whether or not they escape. Like that's like sort of like the pattern here. And oh god, dude, that was so just incredibly. I'm like dumping a lot of like heavy material here, but so this elation that she feels is combined with this guilt. Okay, so there's and the imputations I think are okay. So she's very young, and she's like got this feeling in the back of her mind that she's dodged a bullet and that she has some sort of freedom. But then there is not only the guilt, there's a little bit of survivor's guilt, and then there is the crushing social pressure to be a sad girl in the Garden District, society where your fiance is killed. It's like you're kind of supposed to be like you're supposed to be in Black Veil.
Right. Like
Yeah.
oh, I think of Margaret Mitchell, Gone with the Wind.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
the husband dies, and she can't hide her excitement at being single again.
You're right now. That's exactly it. And and which I guess it's a lot of it's an example of the Anglo being the exact opposite of the like Indian who's like slaughters the wives and throws them into the grave. We're like exactly the opposite. It's like, oh, if now you're free to go do whatever the hell you want. But then there's also this like survivor's guilt. And there's this pressure to like remain this kind of like sickly, neurotic. Frankly, we would say she had the neurasthenia. Um, um,
Just a touch of it.
and yeah, no, and so like this is her stasis. She's like in stasis here. She's like in the crystal. That's her crystal. Okay.
She's in the crystal.
No, I'm serious. I'm maybe being a little bit like facetious here. Like it's like she's suspended in time. I'll go back and pull this out of William.
Yeah, I mean, there's
You want to pull
also
this out of William Blake? You want to do the four Zoas real quick, where okay, she's in this like third state of consciousness, which is the state of consciousness referred to as Beulah or false rest in the mythology of William Blake.
see, I was thinking, you could even take it in like a Nordic perspective. She's the Ice Queen.
Yeah, no, that's there. That's like one of the things about being in the Blakean pantheon is you can go grab stuff from anywhere else and pull it in, and like it's like, yeah, if that fits, then it's great. Bring it on in. But yeah, no, it's the Ice Queen or the Lady of the Lake or
Mm.
Ophelia. This is a figure that
Oh,
recurs.
Ophelia is the lady in the lake too.
Yeah. This is the. These are figures that recur over and over and over, and like, but ultimately in this particular type of genre, there's our philosophical question here is one thing. So, what are the stressors that are being placed on Kate and Binks as they move through this book? Because okay, so that's her crystal. We've already talked about Binks's crystal. Binks's crystal is like he's stepped outside of time. Okay, he's not participating in the flow of time because he's out in Gentilly, hiding from his family, banging secretaries and being a stock jobber. Okay, he's like generally considered he's like really too old for this. Really not shouldn't be doing this anymore.
It's interesting too because he is he began the search as a young man, right? The war put him in his own sort of stasis, and it's not until Mardi Gras that he begins the search again, really, in earnest
Right.
at least.
Right. So there's like, and that's one of this where this is the Catholicism. There's a divine intervention on, like on Fat Tuesday. Lent has ended. The fast has ended. You got to go again now. So but this is like ultimately New Orleans is a crystal here. Okay, it's a nice crystal. It's a friendly crystal. It's a place where it's sort of like an opium addiction. The city of New Orleans is, and I can attest to this being true.
As an opium addict, I can.
As a New Orleans addict, as somebody who's had a lifelong on again, off again
Damn,
relationship.
that really does go back to Ignatius Riley because the city is doing its damnedest to keep you there.
Yes.
And whether it's heck Bobby Western and we're gonna do The Passenger, you and I, we have
Yeah,
to.
but I mean, I guess you just got cats all out of the bag and that sort of thing. But I'll be gone by the time this comes out or whatever. But the reason this is such a strange time for me to be making this is I'm making another of my escape attempts in 5 days. So I'm
But
trying to
yeah,
leave.
no, you'll be long gone. Well, not long gone, but you'll be gone by the time this comes out. So nobody will hear this and try and wrangle you back. Uh,
Right.
no, but even Bobby Western,
I haven't told anybody here. I'm like literally sneaking out in the dead of night.
just like a thief in the night.
Yeah.
Bobby Western is surrounded by this like cavalcade of interesting characters, right? All of them could be like their own sort of Ignatius Riley types.
Well, there are these shambling bones figures. Now, one of the things about the passenger, and we are certainly going to do this, and we should bring Gwen in for it. Well, no, he won't do that anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Oh no, but I'll have to find somebody then because that is worth.
maybe Mackie.
Yeah, it is certainly worth talking about. That one of the characteristics, one of the things that makes McCarthy's like sort of spooky he's kind of the spooky inversion of this whole thing. All these characters that he talks about, none of them are from New Orleans. None of the characters.
They're like
They're all from Tennessee.
Yeah, no, and they're like lobsters getting caught in the trap.
That's exactly
You put like a nice piece of haddock or something
Oh my
in
God,
a
did you say
lobster trap.
Haddock? You are such a Yankee. Oh my God. The only other person I've ever known that used the word haddock was my long many girlfriends ago. Her mother who was from Boston would serve haddock.
Well, you take whatever Atlantic fish of your choice,
Yeah.
right? And you put it in the trap, and the trap is designed in such a way that bottom feeders like lobster and crab will walk into it and they'll start eating it and grabbing it, but they actually can't escape. But they don't even want to escape because they're just too busy trying to eat the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
You
don't
pull them
even
out of the water happy.
yeah, they don't even notice they're in a trap. So yeah,
And
New
that's yeah.
Orleans is the big lobster trap.
and
Or
that's
I guess crawdad trip.
that's true of all things. I'll go back and grab the third, but the first one too. So like, and the way the books are treated in these three, well, the ways that the city is treated in these three books is very interesting. And the first one, he's the main character is a medical student from he's a medical doctor, but he's from Oklahoma, and he's just doing his residency in New Orleans, and he gets sucked into the demimonde of like the native New Orleans bohemia and like the 1920s, and like
He just likes to have sex.
gets involved with this. Yeah, he gets involved with this married, gets like heavily romantic, erotically involved with this with a married woman, and hijinks ensue. But they do leave. They leave the city, okay, and then but the city is sort of treated as like this dark. That is like a formal high Gothic treatment of New Orleans as like this like gilded palace of sin. Is like what is like you think House of the Rising Sun? That's the New Orleans that If I Forget Thee, Jerusalem happens in. This one is the like post-war sort of peak. It's actually considered the peak of like the standard of living in New Orleans. There's 500,000 people living here. It's still one of the major American cities. Crime was at an all-time low. Income at an all-time high. It's generally considered one of the most pleasant, least weirdo time, like conspicuously not weirdo periods of the city's history. And he's living on, he's like living out on the edge of town. It's just kind of this bland thing, but it's like it is a prison again. In both of these cases, it's a prison. In the first case, it's a like sort of almost like a Gothic environment that implores you to commit sin.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
and
It's literally a vagina.
yeah, damn son. Okay, yeah, exactly, yeah, and I say that we say that as two dudes on a podcast, like
Right.
to both women listeners, one of whom has already turned the show off. The the but the second
Yeah, I don't know
one,
what you're talking about. I'm happily married.
yeah, the moviegoer, the moviegoer is this kind of like, do I go to church this weekend or not? Kind of very strange, like boomer tier prison, which is a very real version of it. And then in The Passenger, it's a prison in the sense that it is like beyond the river Styx. Like
Yeah,
nobody is
his is a memory prison
like,
too.
yeah, nobody is from here. And when we do The Passenger, I'll get into that, the question of whether or not anything that happens in The Passenger really happened. But
I already did that with Gabe, with Lolita. I don't need another one of those.
But no, this is a way better. It'd be like a 2-minute portion of this one. I'm going to doing it. We're going to talk about the movie go right now. But really, because there's not, you don't want to do too many spoilers. The most I can really do here for you, and the most I would ever really want to do, is like sort of just prepare you for some of the philosophical questions that we're undergoing here. And the main thing that I want to like reiterate again before we do anything else is that what you're looking at is a philosophical experiment where a man and a woman who are sort of cosmically destined for one another if they can work it out. And they both have something like free will and something like agency. And one of the key points of the novel is how much do they have? And it's sometimes it's going to be a very, deliberately discussed aspect of the book. And so, as a philosophical novel, it's one of these things that, it works. It's very much like that. And you got to, whenever you encounter these bits of it, the writing is beautiful and it's worth lingering on because they're very fun. But, again, the thing you have to remember with this book is that it is essentially a question of, can Binks Bowling and Kate Cottrell overcome these increasingly absurd obstacles? And, in some cases, some of these characters are absolute loons. Like Binks's aunt is a loon.
Yep.
But Binks's mother is a loon. Okay. Like these people are all loons. And
his uncle's kind of a loon too, but he's a little bit more normal. But that's kind of relative.
And this is a very real thing. Like families in New Orleans really are this crazy, and so like this, he's like it. One of the things is like it hits very hard for people that are from the cities because it is one of the most brutally honest depictions. Like I don't think Ignatius Riley. I don't think Confederacy of Dunces is a very good. It's like a Dante's Inferno sort of like cosmic comic tier treatment of the city. This is a very realistic one. Like these are, it's like full. One of the things Walker Percy is incredibly good about is because he's a Heideggerian background, so he's very interested in being in time essentially. So like he's like, how does the subject experience day-to-day life? And so he's very good at lingering on small aspects of things. And look, the fact that it's in New Orleans and there are so many small aspects to lean on, it like if you don't even have to have synesthesia to get blown into synesthesia by this book, because you can taste the flavors of the city in it. If you like, that's why I'm like lingering on the locations. It's like, oh, he's in the Gentilly. Okay, that's a thing. The Gentili's got a taste, a smell. And he really, he really nails it whenever he, moves off into these digressions. But again, and I would caution everybody again, because there's a philosophical trap here as well, because we are also invited by Binks himself to question things like whether or not he spends too much time noticing little things about day-to-day life. There are a number of like sort of recursive thought cascades that you can fall into philosophically with this book. It's another reason why I think it tends, I think it's a tendency that a lot of guys that spend a lot of time on Twitter have, is recursive thinking. And so like, they can recognize a lot of the, philosophical traps and stuff that Binks might be falling into. So you got to keep a lookout for those as well when you're reading it. I'm just telling people what to look for. I'm not even telling them where it's at.
I did want to ask, because as you rightly state, this book is heavily Catholic.
Yeah.
Recently did an episode on Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor. So far, it's the most popular episode we've done, but that's more just because of who Dave is rather than probably who O'Connor was.
Who did it?
Dave Green.
Oh, really? Oh, did he really? Oh, yeah. Now I remember. Never mind.
but so I guess why does the South feel so Catholic?
Well, New Orleans feels Catholic because.
Well, I mean, I know New Orleans is a French city, but I extrapolate out to the wider South.
I don't think the South feels Catholic at all. I don't like that to me. And I'll actually here. Hold on, I have to go grab something real quick. I'll be put back in the
Sure.
Okay, but can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, no.
Yeah, just get. I'll edit this part out. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Wait, make sure this thing is still there.
All right, we're back.
So this question of South and Catholicism in this book, okay, the things that I see that are Catholic here, I often am confused about what people see as Catholic. We're going to go over time because we have to talk about this. Are you Catholic?
Go ahead. No. What overtime? We're doing it, man. If we got to go 2 hours, we're doing 2 hours.
Okay, yeah. Okay, what are you Catholic? I can't remember.
I'm Orthodox. I was raised Catholic.
Yeah. Okay, so you're familiar with them. What do you see that's Catholic in it?
It's gee, I can't even answer that. I'm taking it off of your. I'm taking it on faith that it's a Catholic book.
But like that's the thing you see about it all the time, isn't it? It's like, yeah, it's this really Catholic book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always ask, I always ask people. I have to ask people this question: is like, what is it that you see that's specific, that's peculiarly Catholic in it? And like, I think it's way easier to answer a question like that.
Is it just Mardi Gras? Is it just tradition?
I mean, to me, the only thing that I see that's explicitly Catholic in it is like stuff like, there are exoteric signs that occur. Okay, so like the resurrection of, or the beginning of Lent is like sort of signified by, the beginning of Lent is signified by this exoteric experience in at a Mardi Gras parade. Okay, so that's like so it's Fat Tuesday, then you begin the Lenten fast. Okay, so like the Surge's part is Lenten fast or something like that. Okay. Yeah, that's Catholic. That to me seems obviously Catholic. But there are people that read a lot more Catholicism into it than that. And I think, what the way they arrive at that is because a lot of it is based on the existential work of like, Soren Kierkegaard is somebody that was very influential in Percy. But to me, I mean, it's the setting and just the fact that Walker Percy himself was blindingly Catholic that kind of flavors it. But it's just not a theological novel.
Well, I wonder, because Camus is also a huge influence. Like the first line of the book could be right out of The Stranger.
Camus also seems like to me like an incredibly Catholic, not Catholic.
Well, yeah, no, and he's not. He's a atheist, but the French strand of atheism is so tinged by Catholicism.
Well, we're talking about cultural Catholicism here,
right?
And then that's why, of course, I was like, yeah, of course, because New Orleans is culturally Catholic. There are 5 Catholic churches within walking distance of me, and like one of them is the International Shrine of St. Jude. So like it's not like this is. The city that I'm moving to has a Catholic cathedral, but it like doesn't have any international shrines. It's not a world famous Catholic city. Like New Orleans is a world famous Catholic.
Really,
city.
Bisbee, Arizona isn't a world Catholic city.
Arizona.
I'm kidding. I'm making fun.
I know, but I don't even want to offend the good people of Arizona. I might come to Arizona. I'll come to Sedona. And I am writing one of because I'm like, God, that's cat's out of the bag. I'm writing this book, and one of the stories does happen in Arizona. But yeah, no. So that's another one of these things. Well, though that has to happen is the trip out of the South has to happen, and this is a trope that emerges in Faulkner's fiction. Again, it happens in If I Forget Thee, Jerusalem, but probably the guy that's most famous for deploying this device is Robert Penn Warren, who does it in All the King's Men, and he does it in another book as well. But All the King's Men is for this character, another one of these white upper class New Orleanian, like single mid-30s kind of drifting protagonist, and he leaves, he like has a nervous breakdown again over his cousin as well. and drives out to Palm Springs, and that's like stays in a hotel. And in real life, John Kennedy Toole did that. That's he drove out to Palm Springs, California before he killed himself. So like that's it's like there's a sense in which there's like that trip out of the South is like a filter in some ways for or a turning point in the life of the Southerners. Like what sort of happens when you do this trip. Something decisive is changing. Be careful what you wish for, because the decisive thing that you might blow your brains out,
Right. Yeah. R.I.P. To Mr. Toole. That's one of those what ifs I think about sometimes, where it's like, well, what if he didn't kill himself? He got Confederacy of Dunces published, and then the sequel, or even a spirit.
It would have been immediately popular, but Walker Percy was the guy that got.
Yeah. I know. I held the first edition in my hands, with Walker Percy's foreword in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was at a rare bookstore in Knoxville. It had the Moviegoer. It had Confederacy of Dunces. It had Suttree. It was a beautiful place.
That's interesting. And of course, it was in Knoxville, is where it was, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't even go to the Suttree shrine or the Suttree statue when I was there, kicking myself for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I've never been to Roanoke. I've never been to Faulkner's house. I don't really do that kind of tourism. But and again, the reason I don't do that sort of tourism is that kind of tourism is not the thing Binks Bowling would do. And Binks Bowling is literally me. Like this is like
you'd go to the local AMC theaters and watch a movie.
Yeah, this summer I've recently started watching movies again.
Well, it's funny that you said I went to my library today and I picked out the 4 Wes Anderson pictures that they had on that they had.
So now I'm curious, which ones do they have?
They had Rushmore, The Life Aquatic, and the 2 new ones, Asteroid City and The French Dispatch.
The French Dispatch, yeah, okay, yeah. Those are good. Those are all good ones.
I mean, Steve Zissou is my favorite film ever.
But
well, not ever.
But so
Tough.
yeah, I've recently started watching movies, and so again, there's like all like another weird reason why this book is crashing down in my life in all directions. Um, but
Okay, here's the real question.
yeah,
End of the book. Is Binks happy?
oh well, I don't know. That's a good question here because here's probably one of the fundamental questions that the book is asking, and it's like, what does happiness look like? Okay,
Mm.
what is the conception of happiness that, and like, okay, does someone strive to achieve happiness, or do they strive to change their understanding of happiness to fit what they have? So like there are like
Maybe
different
that's
models
maybe
of
that's why
happiness
it's
in
a
here.
Catholic book. Because
Like,
that's a
oh my,
fundamentally that's a deeply traditional Christian question.
yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so yeah, we stepped on the landmine and found it. So, but that's sort of the question that's going on here, and really, you can argue that this is the main transformation of the book. Is that initially, when he sets out on this thing called the search or whatever, and he's, oh man, do we want to go into deep canon? Okay, yeah, when he sets out on this thing called the
Dude, this is
search,
Canon Fodder. We have to.
yeah. When he sets out on this thing called the search, the initial state of this character is he has a concept of what he thinks the search is. Okay. And he thinks it's this thing that he's going to go find that's going to make him happy. Okay. Right. And I think, well, one of the things is because he goes, oh my God, he goes through a sequence of women over the course of a year or so, over the course of several years. And like, he's like sort of he didn't treat him very well. He's not really like particularly cruel to any of them, but like, he's like stringing these women along in these like essentially dishonest relationships because he's not, because he's looking for something that he's starting to suspect. He's looking for the wrong thing. And like really the sort of transformation that occurs in Binks, which is key out of the turn is key to get out of the crystal, is not doing something like driving off to Chicago or jetting down to the Gulf Coast for the weekend. It's not getting away. It's not like there's no consumeristic sort of thing that you can do. You don't move into happiness. Like what you have to do if you want to be a happy person, what you have to do is like sort of alter what you think of as happy. And like this is what is this question? This is Heidegger. This is where the Heidegger and the Kierkegaard come in. So it's like, okay, was the main issue in Heidegger's? And oh my God, people are so mad because I'm de-dimensionalizing rapidly, but I love doing this with Heidegger. I think Heidegger is actually so simple at the end of the day, and he gets made very complicated. Heidegger posits this question where he says, okay, the idea of the philosopher king from Plato is botched. Okay, that shit doesn't
Right.
ever happen. Okay.
Don't ever let a nerd in charge.
Yeah, and well, yeah, that's of course a downstream assertion, but it's like, okay, this Platonic thing doesn't fucking work, and so all of Western philosophy until Nietzsche can be thrown out the window. Okay, because Nietzsche is the guy that reimagines subjectivity in such a way Heidegger's universe can account for. Okay, and so the question
This is Heidegger talking, or this is Sandbatch talking?
this is Heidegger. Yeah, this is
Okay,
Heidegger.
okay.
Okay, yeah, and the way he said this is and the reason Western philosophy has to be botched is because it's not, even if it's attainable for one person to be a philosophy king, if anybody else is going to get anything out of philosophy, unless their job is to be the philosopher king, then teaching them how to be the philosopher king is stupid. Okay, and so what you have to do instead is like you have to change your perspective. You have to disappear inside that person's subjectivity. So like me as not the philosopher king, how do I be in the world? How do I relate to the world in such a way that's fulfilling to me? And what does fulfillment mean? Are the philosophical questions that Heidegger is incredibly interested in. How does one be in the world? What is the relationship of
Well, I
being?
mean that's the question is how do we exist in the world? Like that's the what is the good life? That
Yeah,
is the question of philosophy.
and
Everything
he's
else is just pointing towards trying to achieve the good life.
Right, but here's the thing about the Platonic form. The pure Platonic form abrogates time. Okay, so again, you can in fact step out of time in the sort of Platonic when the Platonic form is achieved, like the universe clicks, and like the Rubik's cube is solved or something like that. Is it's the way that's often conceived. And he's like positing something entirely different, which is to say that like no, that's a bad way to look at anything. And what we have to do is we have a much more complicated model now instead, because like if we can't bring everything in the universe, and this is also incredibly Catholic, this is incredibly Catholic. If we can't bring everything perfectly in line with sort of, the ideal situation of the world, what do we do? How do we relate to it in, a godly way or in a saintly way? And so like one of the things we come with to account for time now was like, okay, so like, maybe the way that's done in 1950 is not the same way that's done in the year 2024. These, the underlying conditions changes. So what is a modern subject, a modern person in the modern city of New Orleans, what is happy to them? Like, what is it going to take? Is it going to take you get that house on, Clio Street, Clio and Third? You're going to be in the Lower Garden District. You're going to wear boat shoes to like the po' boy shop every Sunday. You're gonna wear pastels. Donate to Tulane's football program. Is that gonna be the life that you live, or is
Boy, talk about throwing money away.
dude, the is that the life that you're gonna live, or is there something else that you're not destined for? And so Binks has decided that there's something else he's not going to do. That there's nothing there for him. And he's running from his family, he's running from his past, and he's trying to abrogate it by living out in the gentilly or something like that. And he doesn't ever go back. But when he does go back, he's usually there. He sees Kate, and of course the story. He starts spending more and more time with his cousin, but he's also still dating these other women. But where was I going? Sorry, we were on the philosophy part, the philosophy section. Yeah. So what is the life? What does life look like to you? You know what you don't want. You don't want that over there. You want bohemian hedonism. You can go live in the Bywater cold water flat and do that. Do you want nothing? You can hang out. You can hang out in Gentilly. Do you want exoticness? Do you want to leave? You can fly to Chicago? You can bring somebody to Chicago with you. You can go to Pensacola for the weekend. You can drive to Palm Springs. You can go.
I mean, he visits his mother out in the
States.
sticks.
Yeah, and Bayou de Salaman. That's up on the North Shore. Yeah, so you can go, and that's a pretty popular. That's the traditional thing for people to do to get out of the city is they have like a river house or something like that. So yeah, he can go try hanging out at his mom's river house. He can do that. All kinds of things he can do here.
A literal pied de terre.
But none of them are working. None of them are working. And he knows none of them are working. And so attempt to find happiness, attempt to become the philosopher king of New Orleans doesn't work. Okay. So what do you have to do now? You have to sort of incorporate things there's so many more variables you have to account for now. So like, okay, what does happiness look like? Does it make you feel pleasure? Does it make you feel satisfaction? What about mutual obligation? How do you feel about that? Because I think for a lot of people, for me personally, like that's like, oh man, mutual obligation is very like sort of satisfying and reassuring. Is it that, or is it money, or is it what? I don't know.
I mean, like, just bringing my own personal life into it, I am in the happiest period of my life right now because my wife's pregnant.
Yeah.
It's like,
how far into my personal life do you think we've gone so far?
A little. So
it out, man. I'm just spitting examples everywhere. But
I'd say the listener knows you quite well at this point.
So yeah, leaving doesn't work. He leaves, he comes back, and it's like, okay, that's usually
well, and it's interesting too, because one conclusion you can take from this book, right, and in general, is that the crazy old people in your life were right.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And this
Aunt
is
his Aunt Emily is like, kind of batty. She's stuck in her ways completely. She's stuck in the past, but she's completely right about Bings. He should be a doctor. He isn't applying himself to the fullest. He shouldn't just be making money for his uncle. Like he is like in stuck, you know, and she does know what he needs to be because she's known him his whole life. And his whole sort of his get along, go along, like he just throughout the book he just kind of says, yes, I agree, you're right. Meanwhile, he's thinking to himself, she doesn't even know me at all. She knows him completely well. He doesn't know himself.
yeah, that's right. Huh. You know, though, that's an aspect of the book that I've really attempted not to dwell on in the past. Is
Of course you wouldn't.
the dude? You know, I went to see that Tennessee Williams play suddenly last summer and a couple of weeks ago, and the person I took with me I did not, I had never seen the plot. I did not know the plot of Suddenly Last Summer. The person I took with me was treated to a front row seat. You know, like it's like the character, there's like this raging overbearing mother and this like, you know, like rebellious, like, you know, there's like a rebellious family. The whole family's dysfunctional and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what's going on here. That's like one of the things. This is, I have said this in the past. Southern fiction and Russian fiction have more in common than any other sort of branches. Because, I mean, and this is what says, every family in these books is totally dysfunctional,
Mhm.
and and that's
Well, and I mean, we're gonna find out how true that is, because the next episode that is coming out of this is another Sandbatch episode. We're doing fathers and sons with you and Mr. Virgil Hunt.
oh, I'm so this is the second time in 2 days I've recorded a show where he has come up. I'm so excited about it. He's one of my favorite people. He's probably my favorite person in the media scene right now.
Oh, that hurts my feelings.
Well, I would never say it to you. I would never say it to your face. I only insult people to their faces. I say nice things about them behind their
Wonderful. Anyway,
back.
let's see. We what's good. I've always found that the better episodes are the ones where we talk around the book, rather than going beat by beat.
Yeah, that's like the way I do it is always it's not the way I would do a lecture, but it's the way I would do a seminar, and like because like I always like why would you listen to a show about a book if
Yeah, when you could
I
just read
tell you
it.
what happens? So, and especially with Southern books, I really like to just point out to people because they're such self-conscious thought experiments. I don't like to I don't like to put my fingerprints on their interpretation of the
Mhm.
book too much. I would just like to point out, like, so yeah,
So okay, so you brought up Russian fiction before, and that's where fathers and sons came up, but that's not really applicable. But what is applicable, you could say, is Anna Karenina.
yeah. I mean, that's yeah, yeah. That's definitely the one. This is the most immediate one. In other Southern books, though, you'll see sketches. Turgenev sportsman sketches will be the one
Hmm.
that's very. That's where that whole. When we did go down Moses, that one is that's an offshoot of sketches from a Hunter's album.
But so the primary question of Anna Karenina, right? At least for half the book, probably more than half. The half that it's funny. He gets second billing in his own book, but he's the most important character, Levin, right? And he is on this journey of trying to figure out what the good life is. Like, how does one become happy? He thinks marriage is going to make him happy. He thinks living in the city when he does that for a while is going to make him happy. And it's not until the birth of his son and his uh him coming face to face with God makes him happy, right? And I guess the other reason that you could call this book a Catholic novel, I'm talking about the moviegoer now, is that it's existentialist in nature, but it is it has a happy ending, happy-ish. I mean, you could interpret it as a happy ending, I guess.
I mean,
Uh,
I think it does. I mean, I actually think it's one of the happiest endings of any books. And like, I mean, just to answer that question, the very short question, yeah, I think Binks is happy, but I think his concept of happiness doesn't look anything like what he thought it would.
well, that too. But it's also because Percy can thread the needle. Like one of the things that I found so jarring about the evangelical space, right, is its refusal to engage honestly with modernity.
Yeah.
Uh, Funnily enough, I also talked to the distributist about this, where I castigated movies like God's Not Dead, right, and the idea of existentialism and nihilism is heavily fought against in works like the Brothers Karamazov,
Yeah.
by
I mean,
Dostoevsky.
it's almost a physical thing that you have to wrestle with,
Hmm.
and like this is from, Percy's, he's a depressive. And he has that
Yeah. Oh,
history.
totally.
He's got that family history of depressiveness. I fucking have it. Everybody in the world
Yeah.
does.
I mean, if you've ever put pen to paper, you're
Yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
a depressive.
Yeah, but the oh the
But to kind of
existentialism.
to tie my point together, the that Percy can wrestle with with the absurd, with the
He does it, I think, better than anyone. He is the like this book is the reason why I have no like it's not even a mimetic distaste for irony. I have like a total like revulsion for irony of any kind. I like
oh, that's interesting. I wonder, is that why you don't
like
really
you're in enough group chats with me to see like moments when the meter goes over the top. I was like, I cannot.
right, and that's I'm completely irony poisoned. So so
Yeah, I'm not, never. This book is an antidote. It's an antidote to irony in a
it
lot.
is, but that's interesting because I never put together that you probably don't like Wallace.
Well, yeah, it's the. Uh, but it's
Anyway,
I don't know. I don't want to dwell on too much. But it's one of the reasons why I'm such a. It's what you become a strange figure on the internet if you can't handle irony. Like this is like one of the things that the internet it's this totally ironic.
yeah, instead of the new sincerity, you're the true sincerity.
Yeah, I can't stand new sincerity either. I couldn't like I've tried to read David Foster Wallace's fiction and I could not do it. I'm like just like and it's not bad. And I like his essay on Roger Federer. I think that was incredible. But the reason I think it was totally incredible is because there was no fake, there's no new sincerity there. He's like a little kid writing about tennis, okay?
Right, right.
And
New sincerity is your irony poisoned, and you're trying to fake it till you make
and
it.
you're choosing not to be.
Exactly,
I'm
and you
not of the
can't.
new sincerity. I actually believe in things, and like,
Yeah,
and this book
maybe
is
then
one of
I'm
the
not
reasons.
irony poisoned, but I certainly like irony, or
Yeah.
like yeah, I'm not you yet.
But okay, so that's one of the things that's going on here. So Binks is he's adjusting in real time, and one of the things he decides he comes to, and it helps. We're led to believe Kate is kind of hot. Okay,
Hmm.
she's hot, but she's like obviously a little damaged as well. Like there's a little, but and one of the things here is recognizing his own damage. Like this is Walker Percy is a man who we would have to say it had integrated his feminine side. And so he's capable of thinking, emotionally in ways that like a lot of men like really don't. And one of the things he's talking about here is the journey to being able to do so. So like, what at the outset, Binks is like, he thinks of himself in a way that he doesn't at the end of the book. So it's like, he's like, okay, so maybe these like sort of mutual obligations, maybe this sort of like long-term connection, maybe this sort of like there's a mutuality he develops with Kate, that is not present in his relationships with his, you know, assistants, which are more like transactional in one, you know, like one way.
They're literally transactional because they are his employees.
Oh God, yeah, no. The
Yeah, no, I mean, take that how you want, but I mean, it's
no, you're right. You're right. You're right. And that's like when so he moves from that into this like sort of maybe what we would refer to as more mature and certainly further more in line with a Catholic understanding of the world, I would think. So like you almost can see bits of the great chain of being like peeking around the clouds at the end of this book. Where like, you know, this is like and there's Cormac McCarthy, when he writes about it in terms of ecology. That there is like sort of this cosmic order, and that like maybe what happiness is like finding is like form fitting yourself to the, you know, to the hole that you've got to fit in. And that's like maybe that's, you know, that's sort of what I think occurs at the end, which is different from, you know, the Confederacy of Dunce's take on it, and which is different from, you know, these other, well, in Cormac McCarthy's book, nothing happens, nihilism happens, and
right. And that's probably the like. Okay, Faulkner doesn't have to deal with nihilism.
he's not really interested in the end. He's more, he's so much, he's Faulkner. I mean, Faulkner is so process oriented that the philosophical implications don't really matter.
Right.
Like the meaty, he's much more interested in the high art. So his question is, can Eros prevail? You know, and so he's interested in the progress of Eros.
He's on mission. He's on point. Everything. There is no after. You know, he's not thinking.
You're gonna get a classic ending. Everybody dies. You know,
right. So you know, I just need to tie this up. So
yeah.
But you have Percy, who is wrestling against nihilism and finds an answer.
Yeah, does he win?
Maybe the answer.
Does he ultimately win? We are left on a cliffhanger there. But I think
and McCarthy is just like, nope.
No,
you're gonna lose.
There's nothing. You go to Spain and you get to drink once a week with this married couple, and you just sleep in a fucking bell, and like
no, you're just gonna die, and there's nothing, and actually, fuck you for asking.
Yes. I shouldn't laugh at that. See, I say I don't like irony. To me, this is not ironic at all. Okay, that's like
no, because McCarthy was sincere. He was just sincerely an asshole.
That's the I was so inured to that when all that shit came out like a week or so ago. I was like, yeah, of course he did. Like, what's going on here?
This is news. Like, that's the least shocking thing about the man.
Like, not only that, but my actual first thought on reading it was, wow, he actually loved a woman. And
right. Wow, he could feel love. Like the only
it wasn't until because my Twitter was deactivated, so I didn't see all the uproar till later, and I was like, oh, that was a cool story. And then I logged on, and everybody was talking about it. He's like, he had sex with an underage woman, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course he did.
Was 17.
It's like Texas in 1973. Yeah, you know, like what's the hell?
It's funny. It's funny because I did as of recording this the Thursday of this recording, my episode of John Slaughter will come out. We did All the Pretty Horses, but we recorded it the day, like 2 days before that story broke.
Oh man, that's cool.
So we don't even touch it.
All the Pretty Horses also is probably the closest story to like that. That's like that would have been the one he was writing at the time too. I think no, he would have been writing Blood Meridian at the time, but that's pretty funny. But yeah, no, Cormac McCarthy's take on this is like, fuck you, no.
How dare you ask a question?
But no, this one we get this. Okay, so yes, Kate and this is, and I like, but you know, you can abstract. This is a quest. This is a story as a quest. And I've actually been wanting to do a space on this for a long time. You should start doing spaces on literary stuff.
I don't have the time,
Oh
dude.
yeah, you don't. Maybe I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll start. I'll, like we'll do a whole space on the literary concept of the quest. What are the conditions required for a quest to be? What is occurring? You know, what is the literary ontology of
And
a quest?
well, and then even with like to kind of to play with your question a little bit, does does the fact that it's a quest mean that it has to be noble?
Yeah, that's another.
You know,
Yeah,
like if there's an ignoble quest, which I don't think that there can be.
and yeah. I don't think there's because I think the very fact of it becoming a quest
Yeah,
is
it, me
ennobles it.
to call it a noble quest is to, like, you know, to repeat yourself. You know,
There's always a religious aspect. There's always a religious aspect to a quest, and like one of the things, and this is one of the things that modernism does. If people get so down in the dumps about modernism, remember Virginia Woolf said modernism came in the window like a breath of fresh air, because what modernism is a very sincere, non-ironic
mhm.
attempt to sacralize everything. Okay,
I mean, okay. So, um, John Williams, you know, he was this sort of it's amazing that you don't like Stoner, um, because he's this sort of vanguardist against insincerity, especially romanticism.
yeah, I know.
Right?
I can see all that. He
Romanticism
does.
is
He does almost too good of a job. He gets a little too close to. He cuts a little too close to the bone for me.
right. No, maybe you'll be my Stoner guinea pig, and that'll be the one that just breaks you. Really, this show is just a project to get you to cry on air.
I told
Uh,
you I haven't read it. I started reading it and I couldn't continue because of
but
because of things that were occurring in my life. You know.
what you can say though is that um all that is to say is that romanticism sucks, right? The romantic
Most of the
period,
time it sucks. Like yeah, I mean, again, yeah,
and you could say that it's people, you went into World War I reading the Romantics and you came out a modernist.
yes, that's exactly right. Okay, yes, that's exactly. Oh, that's beautiful. What is that from? Is that from like Great War and Modern Memory?
That's me, man.
Okay, yeah,
That's right off the dome.
that's incredible.
No, I hate Paul Fussell. Fuck Paul Fussell.
Do you really?
Yeah, I think he's an asshole.
I like that. I don't know anything about him, but I read that book and I thought it was incredible. And Nick
No,
has a
no,
lot of
because he's the same. Like, his foreign policy is that of you know, do what you have to do to these men and then throw them away.
oh, I didn't see. I don't know anything. He
You
did.
know, now Paul Fussell can kick rocks. I
Yeah,
had
fuck that guy. In fact, don't ever mention his fucking name on this podcast
no,
again.
no. I just, you happen to mention a book I've read, so I had to speak up.
Yeah. No, that's
But
good. I like actually like hatred for a book. It's like no. It's like no. That book's good. No, that thing fucking sucked. He's wrong. Everything about it. I'm gonna go piss on his grave right
no,
now.
I mean, Great
Oh,
War and
that's a
Modern
good
Memory is
literary
it's
piece.
it's a decent understanding of the First World War, but it's also just like it's completely tinged with the Second World War. It-
Oh my god! Here in the last section, do you want to, because I like people. This is the like snowball question that people. What the fuck is postmodernism? What is the difference between postmodernism and modernism?
Uh,
If
yeah,
you,
nuclear weapons.
that's actually yes. That is the yeah. I mean, of course, that's and Cormac McCarthy talks about this. Like that's why the bomb is such a big deal in his fucking books. And there's okay, but you know you can abstract that the bomb is like one of the things. Goodell and the bomb, or Goodell and the bomb, and the Turing
Or
machine,
you
and
got Gravity's Rainbow. You've got you've
yeah. And
got Kurt
so
Vonnegut Slaughterhouse Five. Like
in
like
fiction, what
all
happens?
of these guys are trying to wrestle with the fact that we invented something that should not exist,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
what
actually like to our complete like there's nothing positive. Well, I mean, like
no,
no,
but
because
no,
you don't even need a
the
nuclear
thing is the
bomb to
bomb.
have.
What the bomb is, man. What the bomb is the what the bomb is this idea that there was always this question in modernism: is the Nietzschean Superman possible? Is it actually possible to never like to asymptotically increase our capabilities? Is it possible to become the Superman? And the invention of the bomb goes,
And
yeah,
we
actually we
did.
can, and that's a bad thing. Okay.
It's like how why did we pursue this?
Yes. And so like, yeah, again, so Faulkner's story is like, we don't actually care what the collateral damage is. We're going to find out whether this Eros thing works out. And in the
It really, I mean, you make Faulkner sound quaint.
yeah, it's like there's a lot of actual like horror, and there's horror that I'm not touching there, but we're really talking about the moviegoer. And so the moviegoer is different. So what makes the moviegoer postmodern is this kind of like, yeah, maybe you can't just, sorry Dan Baltic, but you can't bang secretaries.
You can't find your way out of it.
Yeah. So then what do? You have to change your definition of what sort of happiness is. And we're still talking about that same question because I think it's the question of the book. And it's like, okay, is Binks happy at the end? Okay, what did he have to do to get there? Because that's the moral lesson of this book is like, if you concede that he's happy at the end of the book, then like, okay, what did he do that made him happy? Like, okay, so how can I do that? What would my path to happiness look like? And the quest, and in terms of the quest, the reason I'm bringing up is a quest because that's the same quest that Elliot resacralizes in the Wasteland. That we see, we in modernism, we see this thing where what we end up doing is we start sacralizing the day-to-day existence of everybody, and this is a result of that Heideggerian inversion, where what we're not so much worried about the philosopher king, but we're worried about the miller. What does heroism look like to the miller? What does a quest look like to the miller? And and there's a strange, and this is one of the really reactionary aspects of postmodernism, is because that's a strange callback to
Chaucer, yeah.
Chaucer. Yes. And this is Heidegger is a sort of neo-medievalist in a lot of ways. And like Heidegger is certainly a postmodernist.
Damn, now I want to know what Bob Dylan thinks of Heidegger.
Yeah. Did I mention Dylan already?
No, I'm thinking of all along.
I
I'm
was,
thinking of
I
all
was,
along the Watchtower.
I was saving Dylan. Because Dylan is fundamentally postmodern, man. He's a very interesting character. He's postmodern.
He's postmodern, but he in order to express it, he goes to folk. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And like Dylan is absolutely enmeshed here. Like Dylan is a rough contemporary of Walker Percy's in a lot of ways. They're like. Mm-hmm. This book is published, I think, in 1960, and so Dylan is like 2 years away from, like recording his first album. So they're like sort of rough contemporaries in a lot of ways, and so their approach to things like mythology in the past, where you can kind of sort of like pastiche, you can go grab little bits and pieces of what you want, because now we're not on the quest is not okay. So like the trajectory of like a quest in the medieval world, a quest is a very explicit task that you're given. You're going on a pilgrimage, you're going to do something, then there's some sacral duty that you're performing, and then you get a coin that you can drop in the machine and a woman pops out. Usually is the way it's sort of conceived. The interplay is sometimes we get the woman's perspective, sometimes we don't, Then modernism comes, in romanticism, we get a lot more of the woman's perspective. Because, in romanticism, then, we've taken this thing as where this
is the only, they thought women were people.
Yeah, this is the only story that matters. So now all of a sudden the women are important, and every romantic story is almost in some way about, a man and a woman again. Then modernism comes along though, and we've said, well, the whole thing has gotten schlocky. We've done this wander above the clouds shit's got to go. And so what we've got to do is we have to re-Christianize it. We have to re-religiousize everything, because like romanticism is about escape from like essentially religious bounds, like the bounds of what had been conceived as religion beforehand.
Or or you could just say tradition.
Yeah, it's escaping tradition, smashing tradition, kicking tradition in the face, curb stomping tradition's ass is what like capital R romanticism is about. Like the most romantic figure in the history of the world is Karl Marx.
Oh man.
And then modernism comes along, and what we're doing is very deliberate, make it new, is what Edward Pound said. And, Virginia Woolf said it came in through, it came in like a ray of sunshine. What we're doing is we're re-sacralizing everything. So what does this quest look like now? What does Binks's quest look like? What does his search look like? When we finally get to postmodernism, we've changed from this we've inverted the quest being like, okay, you have to bring the quest to you is what you have to do. It's not going to be assigned for you. And even in the Wasteland, we're getting assigned quests. Abel's like, come in under the shadow of this red rock and I will show you something different from your shadow rising when it gets in something. And then I will show you fear in a handful of dust.
Right. I mean, like to bring up Hemingway, it's like, yeah, we're no longer, his whole thing was like, the true, the good and the beautiful, right? Or at least that's what he said.
Right, but in Hemingway's world, we're like, there is a last cigarette before the execution, and there's a handshake before you go on the suicide mission.
Right. There's still a little bit of that old world left, and this is, you don't even know you're on the suicide. In fact, Binks Bollinger's whole life is just one long suicide mission.
Yeah. No, I think I wrote about this recently on the Substack. This is a quest still a quest if you weren't informed that you were on it.
Right. And that's the postmodern quest is that you don't know that you're on it.
And so, like, one of the things is, again, that's what sort of creates this like the atmosphere. So there's like Kate and Binks are non-NPCs. The aunt is the quest giver. And choosing
she's Merlin.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. She's the Merlin figure here, and like the part of the task of Kate here. Kate is in her crystal, and he's in his crystal, and they have to escape their own crystals. One of them has to escape the crystal and free the other, and you're on the clock from the start of page 1 to whenever this book ends. That's how long you have to figure this out, and that's sort of what's going on. There's, this is the questions that we're dealing with, and the crystal thing. It's so real. It's so real.
So I think we ought to end it there.
Yeah, that works.
For those of you still listening, you knew what you were getting when I brought Sandbatch back on.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about everything but the book.
We're getting the book just fine. Again, though, I want you to go read this book. I actually don't want you to find out about this book from me. I'm really just doing a long advertising spot for it.
Chris, where can people find your work? Where can they get more Sandbatchisms, and where how can they support you?
I'm on Twitter. You can actually pay me to support my Twitter now, and y'all should do
it. You're verified on Twitter?
Yeah. Wait, no. Yeah, you can pay me to support me on Substack now if you.
I see.
Yeah. No, on Twitter, I would never do the Substack subscription thing on Twitter because it's stupid. I'm monetized on Twitter. I was talking to John D the other day, and I was like, "Why would you ever tweet if you're not getting paid to do it?" And I'm like, and he was like,
"Same reason that I write."
Yeah,
Who would tweet for anything but money?
Have you ever looked at the character count that you generate on Twitter?
No.
You should log your keystrokes on Twitter and see how long it takes you to tweet as much as The Great Gatsby is long.
Oh.
And you immediately felt that, didn't you? you know what I'm talking about.
Oh man, that hurts. Oh, I feel so bad about myself right now.
Yeah, exactly. I did it in 2 weeks once, so that's and I was like, that's shocking. Like this is consuming large amounts of my time, but I get paid for it, so I'm like, okay, yeah. If all of Britain wants to call me a fucking racist for whatever, did you see that shit that happened?
No, I didn't.
Oh man, all of every normie in the British Isles pounced on me because I waded into that PH Duchess debate.
I don't even know what you're talking. Oh, the lady who
the smell scholar.
Oh yes. The olfactory queen.
I call her PH Duchess.
PH Duchess is good. All of that to say is this: go support Sandbatch's work
Wait,
on.
yeah, I'm on Wait, I'm on Substack. I'm on Twitter. Oh, is there something else? Oh, yeah, I'm building that other thing, but that's like
You've
we're
got
another
a
time.
you've got a book in the works.
Oh yeah, there's so much shit going on, and I'm moving so slow on all of it. But I want to do the book fast. I'm writing a book that's like sort of based on like conceptualized around this triptych that we've been sort of talking about. And so, like, because I would never write a first novel, I'll write 3 short novels, like Catherine Ann Porter is what I'll do. And like,
As for here at the Double Dealer, uh, you can support us as well when you're buying a Sandbat subscription. You can also buy a DD subscription. You'll get your own episode of Canon Fodder on any book of your choice. Heck, even a book series.
you know what I really wish Substack would do is like create like the ability to like syndicate. So like you would buy
Mm,
like you would spend instead of like paying like because that's what I charge $8 a month or something like that. Or
right.
the way you could like get it's like
You
twenty
pay
two dollars a month
15 and yeah,
and
or,
you get
yeah.
like 5 different Substacks.
You get the Substack network. Yeah, they got to implement that. That'd be cool.
That's
But
so.
for now, you just you know uh, we're gonna nickel and dime you for each
Yeah.
subscription.
And until then, it's panhandling.
Right. Until then, brother, can you spare a dime?
Yeah.
Uh, I have a couple of novels out. By the time this is out, I might have my short story collection available for purchase.
I'm actually
So
real excited about that one. That's I mean, I read way more short stories than I do novels.
my friend, they're just all on my Substack, except for
Yeah.
two. Two of them are going to be book exclusive, but they're not very good. So
Oh my god. Well, that's actually just better. That's better than paywalling the good stuff.
let's see. That's about it, folks. Like, share, subscribe, all that. I still have yet to figure out how to end these things, so I will say insert ending here.